Well, I happen to be here at the video making location, so I figured I'll do another video. This one to Matt, a response video. He did a couple of videos on evolution, sort of. Trying to imply the purpose, the purpose of evolution, as if it was obliged to have one. And he's sort of arguing that it's incoherent to him, that you could take all the complexity that is humanity and somehow reduce it to evolution. And a key part of in his rhetoric that's just missing is making a distinction between our biological evolution, which was governed by natural selection, and our intellectual evolution, or our cultural evolution, whatever you want to call it, the part that has educated us over time. Those things aren't, that's not under the same rules. Natural selection is not in control of our intelligence and how it evolves. It's a completely different kind of selection that's more dependent on the growth of economies and societies. It's taken the DNA sort of out of the issue, and it's more about what kind of ideas survive, and those ideas you can catch from anybody at any time in your life. And so it's a very different, it does a very different thing to your behavior depending on what memes, what ideas you have living inside your head. So I mean, I guess I'll just illustrate the point that our biology is not really evolving, and there's this notion of perfection, like as if evolution had some perfect end, and it's an undefinable. I mean, as biological perfection is sort of unachievable because you can't define what perfect is. I mean, you could say, yes, you could create some sort of organism that survived forever without, I mean, that would be a kind of perfection. So yes, it expands the population to the ideal amount. They live forever and they never reproduce, or does something else. But there could be another definition of perfection, could be just producing enough raw numbers, and that would be it, and surviving in any environment, as cold as it can get or as hot as it can get. I mean, so you can have all kinds of stupid definitions of what biological perfection is, because it doesn't have any other purpose than the narrow purpose established by reproduction, by the idea of the molecular programming of just reproduction. And that's the definition of success, is increasing numbers, taking over space, capitalizing on an environment. And that's it. That's the only ambition that's built into all of these organisms. Biologically, that's the goal. And so, in that game, in that biological survival game, the tool of a rational brain became valuable, because it was useful to be able to scheme to satisfy your hungers, your natural hungers. I mean, nature rationally gave you a desire for food and sex and these things that were going to make you do your consumption and reproduction thing. And even for us, it gave us a little extra psychology, so we could keep a family together and make us stronger. We could get to a little bigger groups and make us stronger, because it was strength in numbers. And so we have some of that psychology. And those things were assets. And it was a real asset to have a rational mind, a capacity to reason, so you could manipulate your environment and preserve your existence and make yourself more adaptable and stronger, more capable of surviving, let me put it that far. So obviously over 10,000 years we've expanded our intelligence well beyond just making us more survivable. We're more indulgent, and we don't obey now. We can satisfy our lust, our desire for sex, without reproducing. So we've obviously broken the biological connection between sex and reproduction. So it gave us a desire that we're no longer using for its intended purpose. So we've used our intelligence to basically take natural selection, to take nature out of the game, to eliminate that control structure. And that's a huge difference. And then when you look at who does reproduce, it's the most intelligent people aren't doing the reproducing. It's usually the least intelligent, because they have less to live for. So I guess apparently, because their lives are more stale and deprivated, family becomes more important, because they need something to have a passion for, something to give a damn about. Something to give a damn about them might be part of it too. And so we're not even evolving a greater biological intelligence, even if that were possible. It's every indication that we'd be dulling our native IQ through the reproductive patterns of the last few hundred years, because it's not the success doesn't have anything to do with reproduction anymore. The most successful people generally reproduce the least. So the two trains are on different tracks. Our intelligence and our societies are evolving on their own, and our biology is evolving on its own. And the two don't have a whole lot to do with each other. There's no longer a common. The scheming tool has left the building, so to speak. It's left the confines of natural selection, and now we are in control. The intellect and the memes are in control. They'll decide what will be selected based on how this programming evolves, and that's what it is. It's just programming, but it's refining itself over time through this process of now what is defined as successful is it's a different it's a game of money, or it's a game of fame, or it's a game of all kinds of definitions of success that don't have to do with having enough food to reproduce. That's not the definition anymore. It's a different definition. And for ideas, it's a real subtle definition. You know, it's a Martin Luther King, Gandhi. A few little characters can just pop out, and they'll have the charisma and the words to motivate millions, to change the minds of millions of people. And that's what's dictating that evolution. And like I said, it really has nothing to do with biology anymore. So Matt, that's the difference. You can't smash these things together and say, okay, this is all the same evolution, because it's not the same evolution. Intelligence does change the game dramatically, and so the way you account for these things it's just like I said, this is not that complicated, and you know enough to be able to use the word psychology. It's strange that it's a word I don't think I've ever heard it come out of your mouth. I mean, no doubt it probably has, but it's such an important word, psychology. Okay, philosophy is important, but psychology is that's what it has to. The philosophy has to live on the foundation created by a psychology, and the psychology won't allow for philosophy to take place if it doesn't. If the psychology isn't going to care about the truth, or care about being reasonable, or care about being logical, and it's just going to be compelled to do what it wants or what it desires, then we're just back to an intelligence that's a scheming tool again. So anybody who has an intelligence that's more than a scheming tool is basically going to have an intelligence that's going to argue with that psychology. It's going to be disciplining that psychology. And you made some comments about why do we punish people for crimes and this kind of, that's all part of psychology. It's all part of, we're not doing it because it accomplishes anything beyond deterrence, but it does have a deterring effect. It's a productive thing to do. It's a way of preventing behavior, because you create an internal obstacle. You defeat the bad act before the bad act takes place by having a penalty to be part of the equation. So the reasoning mind can say, They can make a calculation and say it's in my own interest not to break this law because I will go to prison and have a lousy time.